everyone. I hope you guys and girls are well. This week, we have a special guest, and that is the one and only Nick Dean. Nick is the managing director of a company called ADLIB that specializes in technology recruitment. Nick and I spoke earlier this year because his recruitment agency is one of the few who are B Corp accredited or certified. And for those of you who don't know what B Corporation is, I've already recorded a vlog about it. So please go check it out. It basically, in a nutshell, it means that his agency is the most ethical and the greenest and ESG aligned. So Nick, welcome to this week's vlog. How are you?
Yeah, it's good, thank you. Good. You okay?
I'm very well. Thank you for coming. The reason I'm super keen to speak to you this week is because if anyone has access to the new talent out there in the market and knows what they really are looking for when applying to a company, it would be yourself. And you know how I'm passionate about environmental, social impact, and governance, in other words, ESG. So I'm keen to understand, what are you hearing in the market? What are the new talent looking for when it comes to ESG? And what are companies are doing to highlight their ESG stories?
Sure. Okay. So I think when you consider the different types of organizations and put them into a couple or if not a few different camps, that's a good starting point. So for example, you either have a very purpose-driven business, so their product or their service is directly going to have an impact on the planet or people, whatever it might be. That in its own right creates a pool of candidates that specifically want to contribute to that product or service, and therefore are opting for organizations of such a nature. And that could be anything from renewable energy down to mental health, technology, startup. You see the differences between them. And then when you consider that you have predominantly established businesses, say within financial services, that don't have a product or offering which is sustainably driven, you're then looking at the concept of what sustainability means to that organization, and that's how it's going to flow back into employment. So from the outset, you have a number of considerations. Some people will go directly for impact, others will look at the credentials of the business and think, well, I know that their product service doesn't, but I need to understand what's going to happen in terms of how they're approaching sustainability, what that means to me, what that means to the planet.
And do they actually ask you to help them understand all of that when before you put them forward for a role?
You've got, so increasingly so, I would say. And I think that when you consider technology is actually, so mental health is a great one. If you think about a career in mental health 10 years ago, I'm being quite generalistic here, you would traditionally think of a therapist or a counselor or somebody within health. Whereas now there is, there is numerous, there's mindfulness, there's mental health apps, there is so much, which is a technology, it's a technology business, which fundamentally provides a service for mental health. So the opportunities within that across marketing, technology, product development, we go on, has opened up a huge opportunity there. So somebody who hadn't chosen that as a vocation can actually, but has a deep interest in, say, mental health, can now choose that as a career, although they may be a developer. So yeah, you can directly link yourself to an industry very nicely.
And have you seen a huge turnover when it comes to employees coming out of a company if they are not focusing on that, on these aspects?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that balance of being purpose-driven and commercial. You can be purpose-driven and commercial, which is a thing that comes back into it. It's the balance of profit and purpose. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of research that says actually the more purposeful you are, the more profit that you will make. Mm-hmm. What you do with that profit is a whole different conversation around shareholders, but actually the two go hand in hand. And if it builds employee engagement and a stronger team and a better output, again, it will work towards a better profitability. So yeah.
And when it comes to advocacy, are these employees shouting the work of their companies when it comes to ESG, or are you not seeing them understanding the role that they play within their company?
So we've got we're employee owned. We have an employee council, and we're B Corp, as you mentioned. So we have near 40 people. Those 40 people are all individuals with an individual interest in what purpose is to them. So some people are very inward focused on what matters to them, and they will have things that they won't express outwardly, but we know, or we will try and get close to what's important to them and ensure that they feel part of what we are and where we're going, and they have that. Whereas we've got other people that are, say, are very, very planet focused. Two examples: we have one team member that's created a Green Tech Southwest meetup group that's got near 1,000 members. Every single month they put on an event, they go out, they do physically something about it. We have somebody else that's created a product called Motherboard, which is a business charter for supporting mums in tech, because inclusion is hugely important to them. That doesn't make, they're very visible and they're very vocal, but that doesn't make them any different to the person that is very inward, because they as an individual have their own priority as to what purpose means. It's just that the way that they display it is very different and important to them. And they might do more subtle things. They might actually be really supportive of the people around them and their internal community. So I think for me, it's about how everybody approaches it individually and providing the platform for freedom to promote or shout or champion, but people will do it in lots of different ways. But there shouldn't be you have to do it like this or you're not on board kind of scenario.
See, I like that, because there was a recent research that came out. I mean, we all know that by 2025, 50% of the population are going to be Gen Z and millennials. And the report was saying that, for example, in China, these millennials and Gen Zers are willing to sacrifice 0.05% of their annual salary in order to save the planet. And what's also interesting is that 53% of the females within the Gen Zers and the millennials said that they won't be investing in companies that don't really showcase what is their environmental impact, social impact, and how are they being governed. And I'm working at the moment with a client that wants to highlight their ESG stories externally. And the first thing I said to them, before you highlight your ESG story, first of all, figure out what is your foundation? What are your values? How are these values linked to your initiatives and to your strategy when it comes to ESG? Because the millennials and the Gen Zers out there, and specifically in your sector, the tech sector, they will spot an inconsistency.
Yeah.
And they do want to feel that they play a role in highlighting these policies and these initiatives by actually contributing in highlight. I'm sorry, I'm baffling here, but what I'm trying to say is that companies, and you've just cemented that, companies won't get away with not showing how are they being environmental and social impactful. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I talk about it a lot is authenticity, and authenticity from a leadership, because I think what you can do, and I think that this is already starting coming through, and you have phrases such as greenwashing and these things that we know. It's very easy to hire a people team and a comms team and get them to figure it all out and put it through the company. But if the authenticity isn't within the leadership team, then it will fall down from the start. It will quickly start to crumble. Because it won't be consistent and it won't be that message. And I think no matter what the comms team and the people team do through an interview process and through their external attraction methods, as soon as you're working for that business and you start to see, for example, like, I think it's interesting that you say around the research there and what people are willing to give up from a salary point of view. See, I would slightly argue, and it's a very complicated one, but I would argue that back to say that it comes down to shareholders and stakeholders. If you've got a stakeholder capitalist model as opposed to a purely shareholder model, your shareholder model would look at that and go, well, for 0.5 whatever it is percent of each employee, we'll tell them up front that we're going to put that money in front, and you don't need to take a pay cut for that. And those people will join anyway and know that they're getting a contribution, whereas actually from the overall profit, they get the advocacy and they get the engagement and they get the retention, and they will get far more longevity and make far more profitability out of that person by doing so. So it kind of feels like they just, as I said earlier, they go hand in hand. I think there's a big shift in that shareholder model when the shareholder is potentially investors, potentially, again, another complex world. But if it is all what is the bottom line and making decisions on a bottom line with a very short view, that's when those policies don't come through. The policies come through when there is a long-term view, the value of each employee as an individual and their contribution, and actual real meaning as to what they will produce from a productivity point of view, through feeling good, being good, all of those things.
Yes, no, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thank you, Nick, for coming and helping me understand what the talent is looking for. Actually, you cemented what I think I got right. So thank you for that. Until we meet again, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.